Okay. All right, guys, we are live, and I got some good questions for you today with Matt and Patrick. So we're gonna have the male perspective on all this love stuff. Uh, Getting to the first question, what is love in your guys' opinion? I'll let you go first, Patrick.
So love, in my opinion, is going to be just a full-on commitment to sacrificing yourself for someone else. So whether that's going to be you're sacrificing your time, that's going to be you're sacrificing your income, whatever it is, it's going to be providing wholeheartedly yourself to either your family, one person, your kids, whatever it may be. But it's just going to be full commitment, 100%, whether that's going to be your life, your wealth, whatever it may be. It's just sacrificing is what I would say love is.
Okay. Yeah. Sacrifice, that's for sure. It definitely, it does take sacrifice to sustain a family, and like you're talking about loving your family. So,
Yeah.
Sir can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good, right, guys?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. The question is on you now. From a male perspective, what is love?
Whoa, that's the first question?
Yeah, we're gonna get all deep and gushy, so don't fucking turn too macho on us.
Um, I don't know. It's different for everyone, I think. It might mean something different to everyone. And there are different flavors of love as well, possibly. Physical love, intellectual love, that kind of stuff. But I heard sacrifice there. I think that's top of the list, right? That's the measure for love. That's for sure.
Right. Sacrifice. What would you say though? Don't just coattail off of our fucking answers.
Yeah, I mean, kind of willing to give up on a lot of stuff is what it meant to me over the years. But I don't know. Um, that willingness to negotiate. That's what it is.
Yeah. So just to kind of reiterate, willingness to negotiate, sacrifice. So putting both of those are on the same theme of like putting someone else's best interest ahead of yours, right? What about you?
Yeah.
What about you, Matt?
I think they're all right. I think those are all commendable things to say. No, those are not wrong things, right? I'm not gonna say they're wrong either. I think he's right when he says they all come in their own flavor too. Everyone's definitely gonna try to push their own definition of it on you, I think, and it's really a lot of it is still a give and take. It's still a two-partner dance, right? You can sacrifice yourself and to smithereens. It's up to you to recognize that too, right?
Yeah, you're saying that you get the short end of the stick.
No. I mean, it's up. Maybe that's up to you if you allow it, right? Or
because you wouldn't sacrifice.
What if they're not that kind of person?
If it wasn't in your best interest too, right? Like you're not doing all this out of the goodness of your heart, totally, right?
So I think it depends on like where we're talking about love, right? So if I have obviously the love for someone's wife, girlfriend is gonna be different from the love of like your dad, your aunt. You know what I mean? So love in general, we can kind of generalize it, but if we're gonna like fine tune it as far as like someone's relationship, like this is my significant other, this is my spouse, that love will be different from the love of like your kid. You see what I'm saying? So it depends. I don't have any kids, but if I had kids, would I sacrifice myself 100%? But
so you'd give your life up?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but it depends.
What about
on
for your girl?
Yeah, anybody, dude. So
any one of your loved ones, you'd give up. You'd take the bullet for them in a literal sense.
Right. And I think that's what love is. We're just like, I don't care. I'm not gonna put my life before someone else's life. And I think that's what like a true definition of love would be. We're just like, I will give up my last breath for that person because I love them.
So going back to like, you could sacrifice yourself to smithereens, and right. That's the point, though.
Yeah.
Right. Is that you are giving up your life,
right,
in a literal sense.
And then we can spin it also. We're just like, not to get too much off topic, but some people also give their lives on a daily basis I don't know if we call it love, right? Let's say that we have military, we got law enforcement.
I just want to comment on
Yeah.
the military law enforcement. So somebody said something about war,
Yeah.
right? And he asked a veteran, like, and the veteran was like, well, the first rule of war is that if you're scared to die, then you know, like you have that expectation that you're going in there to die. So
Right.
in the sense of like love, it's the same thing, right? If you're
Yeah.
going in to tiptoe into it, bro, that's not for you, you know?
Exactly.
Might as well go into full on, you know, I guess the worst thing, the highest level of commitment is that I will die for this probably.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sir Can? I don't think you're on the same boat with us with that. Oh, you're not there? You can hear us though, right?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Would you give your life up for a bitch?
I think that's a little too much
Call
to
it
ask
that.
for, but I get the point, right?
For your bitch. How about that? Yours.
Yeah.
You wouldn't like put your life on the line? For the children
I think-
part, it seems like an easy you know, decision.
Yeah.
My children, I'll give my life up for my children, right? What about your other loved ones?
Yeah, we say that kind of stuff all the time, but I don't know what happens if I actually had a gun in my face, right?
Well, it
And,
does
like,
go back to
I would-
self-preservation, right? Is the first rule of nature. So you have to preserve yourself to protect them. But if it got down to that situation, like you said, a gun in your face, what would you do?
So if my dying saves her,
Yeah,
yes.
in like a really we won't paint the picture out, right? But in a really hypothetical situation where it was the last option.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
Yes.
you can't argue with them and be like, well, if I'm dead, then the family doesn't, you know, nobody's there to look out for them. It's like the last option where it's like some James Bond type movie shit where you're sacrificing yourself, right?
Yeah, in that case, yes, definitely, because you can't live it yourself otherwise, right? So
Right, bro. Right. As a man, you definitely couldn't live with yourself. You feel like a bitch every day of your life.
And just that guilt's going to get
Yeah.
you away. Like that's some movie that's never going to stop playing in your head.
Right.
yeah,
Right, Matt. Like, so okay. I even heard a story that this father. It's not even about dying. This father, he took his wife and kids up to this like you know those like really high skyscrapers with the glass bridges or whatever.
Yeah.
And the dude was scared of heights, right? And his kids went on the glass bridge happily and joyfully. And then there was another family, and the dad and the wife came across the bridge, and then his wife went, and he's over there just like kind of scared and shaken. And he said that when his kids came back, they didn't even want to hug him because they were embarrassed of their father, right? So it really
That's
gets
tough,
back
though.
to like, you know, if you're a weak character like that, if you're not at least willing to say like, yeah, I'll die for my family, then right, in today's society, right, you're kind of a bitch, right? But at the same time, you know, it's that gesture more than anything that say like, yo,
Yeah.
I'm not scared to die. I'm not a little pansy that's scared of heights. You know, my family's not going to look at me quivering in the corner. Like, I'm the one who's the masculine who leads us into war.
And that's the thing too with the families that, you know, that father aspect, right? Where just like someone has to,
Someone's the protector.
that role model. Exactly. Yeah. And if your dad's not willing to go out there with you on that glass, that kind of shifts the narrative as far as like, okay, well, why? And it might open up a whole different doors that dad might not want to open up. But yeah, I agree with you. Even if you're not comfortable with it, put yourself out there because that's your job as a father. You know
The
what I
job
mean?
as the father is to be the role model, essentially, right?
yeah.
So you have to take those, you know, things into account, right? As the masculine, you got to sacrifice and all the things that we already talked about. But so what's the differentiation between dying for a good cause and a shitty cause? Because you could have one of these terrible women out here, right? You don't want to be just dying for anybody, right? So like, where's that line where like some guys, they don't kill themselves in the literal sense, right? But they sacrifice so much of themselves. Like we have
Yeah.
a friend that's a divorce attorney,
Mhm.
and she, you know, she's got stories, you know, and the dude, it's not just the dude, the girl too. Like how much of yourself do you know, how do you know that you're being reciprocated in that situation? Or does it go back to that thing? Like, that's the whole thing. Like, you'll drive yourself into the ground or is that just stupidity?
No, I think it all is about self-respect and knowing what you're worth. And if someone's going to be walking all over you, doesn't matter their sex, if someone's going to be walking all over you, whether it's in a relationship that's, you know, intimate or just a family, a friend, whatever the case may be, do you have that self-respect to realize what's happening and then step aside? Because if you don't and you let it keep happening, then that's on you. If you don't realize that, and if you're not listening to your friends and whatever the case may be, we can get more specific, but I think it all depends on self-worth and self-recognition of, I'm not going to let that happen to me, kind of thing.
Where do you guys draw the line? Matt, I'll let you go first, and then Sirkan, you can go next. But when you realize that let's say you start off the relationship saying that you'll do everything for this girl, right?
Okay.
And she's good in the beginning. At what point do you realize that she's not what she's saying she's gonna be, and I don't want to marry this girl? Like, what has to go wrong in that situation?
That's, I think, personal preference, right? It's really your call too, and definitely at your level of self-esteem on what you're going to be able to take, right? Or, I mean, you definitely have to be able to see what's going on, right? And call it from there.
Like, okay, we have a job, we're supposed to provide and protect. I feel like that's the main role of the guy, right? And we're gonna love the hell out of the girl, and her job is to like reciprocate the love, right? And then also play her feminine role, as far as like, you're the girl in the relationship and we care about each other. So at what point, I don't know, maybe you can jump in, Sirkan. Why would you break up with a girl?
I mean, you're poking into the entire struggle of building a family or any relationship, right? So you need to find the right person to tag as that person you die for. And that's crazy. Like, how do you make that decision with a sound mind, you know? And then one step further, you have a kid. Now that's a job for life. How do you commit to a job for life when it comes to this level of commitment, right? Like, I die for you kind of thing.
So a lot of people,
I get,
a lot of people are doing their part, right? They're playing their role in the relationship, but the love aspect, everyone's like chasing the next high and trying to be in love, right? So that's a reason why people leave each other, right? It's like they feel like that love is dying down, even though on paper they're doing their whole role.
They could be chasing that honeymoon feeling over and over and over again, but that's not realistic. That's some movie stuff that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of what Saran was talking about is you go with, it builds over time. Like, you're not just going to go with someone dating a couple weeks, couple months and realize that person is the one. You have to go through struggles, through adversities, and just realize, is this my partner who I want to go through life with? And then bring a human being into this life who's going to have my back and that kid's back, and vice versa. So this is a partner throughout your life, and it doesn't happen without a significant amount of time and adversities and struggles. Like, is she a ride or die? And the only way you can figure that out is just with time. And when these situations come up, that's when that person proves their character, and that's when it goes into that checkbox of, is this the one or is this not the one? Because when push comes to shove, is that person going to be there? And if it's a long-term relationship, everyone's going to get old, God willing. And let's say that I'm old and I'm in a hospice or something, right? Is she going to be there for me? Is she going to take care of me? Or is she just going to let me, you know, just die alone? So all these things are a lot of factors to consider in making that decision.
Sirkan, back to you.
yeah, I think that's a good point. I actually have a personal story about that. With my first wife, the moment I understood that this is going to be my wife was exactly that. I realized she was ride or die. We were in a tough situation in New York, didn't have a job. She had a shitty job, underpaying job. So I was looking for something new, and then I got a job offer from Stockholm, Sweden. Um, and I was feeling overwhelmed, right? How am I going to tell her that I'm going like 6,000 miles away? But as soon as I broke the news, she was like, "Let's go. I'm coming with." Right?
That's cool.
And in that moment, I figured out, all right, she's actually in on the long run here, and someone I can trust, you know. And even though we're divorced right now, that trust is still there. That trust I built that day, really, it lingers on, right? So that was the big moment for me.
So
awesome.
testing them over a time, not intentionally, but just things naturally happen.
Yeah, life will
Yeah.
throw so many curveballs at you, and I think a good partner is the one who's going to be, cheering you on, and vice versa. You know what I mean? You don't. It's not a one-way street. It's both ways. So life will throw curveballs in her path, and then you got to support her, and vice versa. And it's not an easy life, but it does make life easier if you have someone who's a rock next to you.
Yeah. So, anybody have any more comments on this? Matt, anything to add? I don't really have anything to add to that. Okay, so back to the question of what is love? Like we kind of touched on a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it just seems like on both sides, on the man side, there's like this set of requirements to show that like, yo, I'll protect you, baby, right?
Right.
And then on the woman side, it's to show that I'll ride to die with you, baby. Like the girl needs to just be supportive of the guy, and the guy needs to be like, yo, I'll die for you. So
Right.
that's the best dynamic between, male, female, like in a loving relationship, right?
Yeah, you want to be like that knight in the shining armor. But I do have like a question to kind of bounce off that. Is
Yeah, go ahead.
we were talking about earlier is when self-worth, and when you realize if someone's walking all over you, when do you think it's time to walk away in a situation like that where it's like, I'm doing everything I can for this person, in my opinion, right? I'm giving everything and she's not giving it back to me. What do you guys think as far as like a time of like, okay, it's time to walk away?
That's a good question because I actually have that question written down.
Cool.
I'll go first then, since I was thinking about it. In the very beginning, when you guys talk about this is what I am and this is what I like, she's gonna say okay or not okay. And let's assume she says okay. Down the line, if any one of those things that she agreed to and said okay with, she changed her mind a little bit on, oh bro, it's time to fucking, revisit what,
I got you.
the initial requirements of us, like what I want. So there's certain things that you can compromise on. Obviously you're gonna fall deeply in love and you're gonna have these like chemical feelings toward her, and it's gonna cloud things. But if it's something that is a super make or break, then no matter what you feel toward her, that it's gonna be doomed in the end. You could be married for her for 15 more years, and at the end it will be a divorce. So like, is the 15 years of like the process with her worth it? It's probably going to be a shitty process if it's not like lovey-dovey, baby, I love you and I love you back. So it's going to be more of a fighting, bickering process. So the moment one of those things happen where like you realize that this was one of my deal breakers, then she will be showing you that she wants to leave the relationship. You don't even have to make that decision, right? I feel like it's on her.
She's based off her actions, kind of
right,
thing.
yeah. And vice versa, same for the guy too. He could just become a lazy motherfucker and be like, yo, I'm not taking you out to dates and shit no more. So
You think you guys do that? So do you think, because people I've spoken to, do you think that men who don't have enough courage to just say, hey, it's not working out, do you think they'll essentially just die in the relationship and not do what they're doing
I know
anymore?
one thing for sure, that it's harder for men to get sex. So if you can hold on to a little bit longer, just for, guys will usually do that because they know, bro, it's going to be dry out there. Girls are willing to like end it way faster because the sex comes to them easier. So like it's, they can think more rationally in that sake. But when it comes to sex, I think that's what fucks us up. Like we want to leave, but then at the same time, we're like, man, let me just hang on for a few more fucks and then I'll leave,
What about just like giving up though and just not trying because they don't have the courage to say it's not working out, so that they can essentially stop doing their part so that the girl can say, hey, I'm out?
Well, I think Sirkan would be qualified to answer this because you were married, right? And also Matt too.
Yeah.
Matt was married too. He had to get to the point where he had to walk away. And Sirkan, you too. So
yeah.
she walked away, you walked away. I mean, just it's over.
Yeah.
What would you guys say? Are you the type of person who... Do you wish you would have said, look, man, I'm going to put up with whatever bullshit this girl puts me through because I want to be married till I'm 90. Whatever she does, we'll try to make it work. Granted, it's not infidelity, but everything else, you're just like, yo, we're gonna fucking just put up with each other's bullshit till we're 90. How come that's not as, you know, valued today nowadays? Like our grandparents did that, right? Our grandparents put up with all kinds of bullshit so that they can be married for like 90 years.
Times
But
are harder. I feel
yeah,
like
what's
it's
different? What's different though? People got options. That's what's different.
I got you. I'm not sure if you're asking.
Yeah, are you asking everyone?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt. My bad.
No. Yeah, it just looks like you're
We'll let
asking.
you go first, Matt. Yeah.
Sure. No, you're right. People have options. Internet, everything's on the phone. And maybe it's Hollywood. Maybe we're all being enveloped by the media. Or people are. Maybe.
Like the saying, "There's
everybody.
plenty fish in the sea." Why is that so popular?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, not sure.
Yeah, I think globalism plays a big part in it, right? Like back in the day, even when I was a kid, I didn't know what the other kids in other states are doing or other countries are doing. Not at all, right? So kind of you were satisfied with what you had because everyone had something similar around you. So I think nowadays, especially for Gen Z, it's impossible to have a long-lasting relationship. There's no way. And I think we need to make peace with this. Like, we no longer have, relationships that go for 90 years. And that might be okay, right? Everyone gets married 2, 3, 4 times and lives happily ever after, right? Maybe that's it's gonna evolve into something like that, maybe. But I really think it's impossible to have a 50, 60-year-old marriage these days.
I get what you're saying though.
Things are just different now, huh?
Things are different, right? So technology, that didn't happen back then. So as far as like you have your dating apps, you have all kinds of different platforms in which you can communicate and meet random people that you would have never met them on the street or going out. So that's one thing that's changed. The other thing that's changed too is, like we were just talking about, we live in a world now where everything is very fast paced as far as satisfaction goes. If someone's on TikTok, they're scrolling. Someone's on Instagram, they're scrolling. It's on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. So as far as being invested in your time and commitment, I think is a direction that was really established back then. But nowadays it's a little bit more fast paced and people just want on to the next thing and kind of moving on. So it makes it a little difficult.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think females are more independent these days, right? They have good jobs, they can buy a house. They no longer need us to be, like protecting them or paying for their shit. So that kind of removes.
But do you think the females still want a long marriage?
In theory, they'd say so, but I don't think it's doable. I just don't think it's doable.
So you think they want it, but they do want it genuinely, but they don't know that it's probably doomed, that it won't work that way. Yeah,
and they want to be independent and the wife and the mother at the same time, right? So you just can't be independent if you have a family, especially for a woman more than a man, right? Because breastfeeding and all that stuff, it's just natural for mom to be there as opposed to your dad. So they have that feeling inside them, but it's just along with globalism and women being more empowered.
I think we have to take
I think that dynamic is broken right now.
I think we have to take their actions into consideration, right? You cannot hold anything against a younger girl who's like, I want to have a family one day and kids, right? She's young enough, if that's her mentality and she actually does it, then she's the type of girl that we all want, right? Like we want a girl that would understand that family values and like her youth is important because we want to have a family, right? But if she's like 35 and she has all these like kind of like
baggage,
like you kind of squandered. Now you're looking for a guy who's willing to take that versus the family from you.
I gotcha. So here's my take on it, without putting women into like this box, right? Because everyone is individual. It all depends, just like a man would be. It all depends on that person, right? So I'm sure you know plenty of dudes too. I know plenty of dudes where just like, I don't want a family. I want to live my life. I want to be a bachelor. I want to die alone. And in that meantime, I'm going to have all the fun that I want with no commitments of anything. That's cool. I respect it. There's probably women who do the exact same thing. We're just like, I want to live my life. Sure, maybe I want to be a mom. Maybe I don't want to be a mom. It all depends on their personal preference, but they might just want to live their life single too and just have fun and travel around and not have to worry about the commitment that comes with having a kid and so forth. So I think it just depends on everyone's individual status on what they want to do with their life. And that can always change. Someone can have that mentality like my buddy, and he can become 45 and all of a sudden wants to become a dad. So things are up in the air, but I do think it depends on the actual person.
That's the thing, though. That's the thing. The guy, he, at some point, he would prefer if he could have the girl who he could have a family with too, right? So,
like if he's settling down with her, like this, she could be the one if we both wanted to have a family, this is the one instead of finding someone new kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's much better because now he's not, contributing to the degeneracy that our system has led to of like everyone's just sleeping around and with all. It's better if like, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. You laid it out pretty logically, and then Sirkan, you kind of laid it out logically too. Like this is the nature of things right now, right? But kind of going back to that question is like, so girls understand this. Girls understand that the maturity of a relationship is like in the 10-year span. Marriage doesn't mean what it used to mean. Marriage just means something else. It means like you get a ring. The whole matrimony of marriage, that stuff doesn't, because people are not following that anymore, really.
And that's scary.
Right?
Yeah.
They still want to get married, but that doesn't mean they want to stay together for forever, right? So girls will say, though, that's the thing. Girls will say they want marriage, but do they really? Do they want to just stay with one guy for 50 years?
Well, let's flip the script. Would a guy want to stay with one girl for 50 years too? You know what I mean? So it kind of, it goes back to that generalization versus like, if we're going to make it both objective and subjective, where it's just like, I think everyone can answer their own truth differently, but I can't speak for anyone else but myself. Would I want to be with someone for 50 years? And yeah, I would. So because I want to have that partner in life that's going to go through these struggles with me. But I can't answer for someone else. But I think that's why we have this open discussion, which is pretty cool. But in my opinion, I think that's worth it. I think it's cool. I think it's, again, you're finding that ride or die if that person can find them. But sometimes they don't find them until they're 50 years old, or you might find them when they're 20. It all depends.
I think everybody wants that. But then at some point, that same kind of dynamic that you guys had when you first met, like now she's more nagging, or now he's more of an asshole. It like changes. And then so like, that's why you're like, well, I'll find somebody fresh from start that we have something that can grow into something really like loving. But at that point, that lovingness that you had with that previous relationship, like the fire dies out. Maybe it's the person's fault. Maybe the guy gets bored and he's like, yo, I need more sexual appetite. Or the girl's like, yo, being hypergamous and saying, I want to meet, more successful guys. So it could be on both sides. But that's like, people are not committing to long-term relationships as much nowadays. You could be like, I want a long-term relationship, but after 10 years, it's ran its course, and you're like, yo, I want to be alone now.
But that's where that sacrifice comes in that we were talking about earlier, where it's like, are you willing to give that up for the sake of this relationship? And that's that sacrifice. Because if not, then it's all about me, right? Let's hypothetically go with that example. Let's say you're dating someone for a long time, that fire died out, I'm off that one to the next one. That's just going to keep on happening. I don't think that's going to be a path that's lead to anyone being happy at the end of the day, unless that's what you want to do. But that sacrifice of whatever happened with, let's say, girlfriend 1 will eventually happen with girlfriend 2. That fire will essentially start to die, but it's that relationship's responsibility to rekindle that fire, spice it up, do something new, whatever the case may be, because you know where it's headed, but don't let it happen if you know what the inevitability will be. So change it up, spice it up, make it fun and exciting so that it doesn't get to that point. Keep that fire alive with that one person instead of popping to the next one, the next one, the next one, if you're looking for something long-term.
What would you say about it, Matt?
Yeah, no, I think I touched on the topic last time we were here, as it's conflict resolution and just how you guys both can, but to get them together and just, come together. when stuff starts to die, you have to rekindle that fire, right? And it's really up to that couple if they choose to let that fire keep burning, right, or let it die, because it can't just go one way too, right?
Yeah, but the hard part is when someone doesn't want that fire to keep going.
Exactly.
And that's when you get into divorce, and that's when people start stepping out of the relationship and stuff like that. But that's when it gets tough, where the most important thing, in my opinion, in a relationship is communication. And if it's not working out, work it out before someone finds out they're having an affair and they've been having an affair for the past 3 years. That's gonna hit much harder, in my opinion, than someone like, you could have just talked about it ahead of time.
Okay, but we're talking about such a deep subject here of like why do you fall in love and fall out of love? That's what we're saying here, right? And that's a really hard question to answer. Like, for guys, maybe there was a younger, hotter girl. You didn't fall out of love, but you lusted over someone else. And then for girls, it was like a more successful guy came around that gave you more attention and made you laugh more. So all of a sudden, you were getting more stimulus. So like, there's a lot of, this could lead into a lot of things. I think I got some questions though that we can kind of stay on track with. This is kind of a fun one. Where was the last place that you guys met a hot girl? Let's go with Sirkan first, because I think we're gonna lose him in a little bit.
The
The last
last
place.
place, it was the Soho House, Los Angeles.
What is that
Yeah,
place?
in
It's
the
a cool
pool.
spot.
You know Soho House?
No, go ahead,
It's
tell us
like
about it.
it's like a private club kind of thing. You need to, pay a certain amount annually. So a friend of mine took me there. In the pool, I just asked the girl, "What are you drinking?" And she was smoking hot.
Okay. So, going back to like just being out on a Friday night, that's still a wonderful way to meet a girl. So, how about you, Patrick?
Yeah, but in general, I mean, out of the last 10 girls I met, 8 of them were on the apps, probably,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So it's mostly on the apps, I think, at least for me.
Okay, what would you say, Patrick?
I might give you like the more political answer, but here, okay, so it all depends, right? Because we're going super subjective. What is like a hot chick to you? You see what I'm saying? If we're going just based off physical looks,
Let's be vain here and say we're gonna give them a number system,
okay.
and on the number scale, 7 and up is hot. Would you agree, Sirkan?
Yeah, 7 and up, especially if you're drinking.
What would you say?
Okay.
All right, seven and up. Okay. Yeah. There you go. There's your answer.
Okay, so we're going based off looks. Okay. It depends on, they're everywhere, right? You have attractive, especially in California, they're going to be all over the place. You can go to the beach and you can find plenty of attractive people
That's
everywhere.
right.
So I can't fine tune it, put into a box of, at this bar or this restaurant, because you can walk down the street and find a million different attractive people if that's what you're looking for. You see what I'm saying? But also, is there a beauty within that person? Because I would much rather someone who is internally going to be there rather than just physical looks, because the physical looks will die. So if you're just looking for something real quick, a 7 to a 10, anywhere you go in Orange County, LA, they're going to be there.
Where was the last time you saw one though? You met one?
Met like a 7 to a 10?
Yeah.
Anywhere in Newport Beach. So
you could be at the grocery store, you could be at a bookstore, you could be
Yep.
at the bar, you
was
could
gonna
be
say Target.
anywhere.
yeah, you can go to Lululemon, you can go to anywhere in Fashion Island, go to Joey, there's going to be attractive people everywhere you go. So
I've been telling myself something, that I need to get groceries less often and do one item at a time to give me more reasons to leave the house. So like I could just, that's potentially 7 extra women that I could have, said hello to if I would have just got out the house every day for a little bit to grab a grocery.
yeah, that's a good point, because I feel like a lot of people now, the new thing is like join a running club if you want to find someone, things like that. So you want to find someone who has the same mentality or lifestyle that you do. So for example, if you're into eating healthy and eating clean, go to a grocery store and you might run into someone there that you're attracted to who has that same habit. So you can essentially build off that into
The
something
last
different.
girl on the podcast said that exact same thing. She's like, go to whatever class that you like to do,
Yeah.
you'll meet people around.
Exactly. Because you want us to have someone you can relate to, and not just talking to completely opposite things where you have to have that relationship and you have to have that physical and also like just intellectual conversation. Is this going to work?
We'll let Matt go, and then we'll come back to you, Sirkan, in a second.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say Target. Yeah. So
Target. Move your mic in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Target for sure. Girls love going to Target, right, Sirkan?
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know, bro. You ain't never been to Target. You already know.
No, but I agree. I mean, you just need to go out. If you're in Orange County, Southern California, you just need to go out. They're everywhere, you know.
Yeah, we're gonna do a Target stop, a Sprout stop.
There you go.
Right. But that's the thing too, is you have to cater where you're going out to what you're looking for, right? So it's easy to say there's an attractive human being at this bar, but you have to know where you're going to put yourself out and what you're going to kind of expect to get. Does that make any sense?
It does, but it's hard to say that because, all right, I think as a guy, I don't really first look for looks, right?
Okay.
Like, she doesn't have to be a supermodel, but I just have to be attracted to her to have that desire to want to talk to her, because then I'll give her my attention freely, and it won't be any kind of transactional exchange. It will be off my free will of being like, yo, I'm attracted to you and I want to talk. So like that's step one. And then they usually congregate in areas where like you can get the numbers game off a little bit better, you know?
Yeah.
So
But you have to have confidence to do that, to approach a set of, seven females. Can you do that? So most people, depends on the guy, can they walk up there confidently if you're single and be like, hey, I think I'm attracted to you, and just have a conversation like that and essentially just spit game that way.
And I think if you did do that, right, you'd have a much better chance of just like connecting, organically with somebody.
Yeah. Which is cool, but that's hard to do in the generation that we're in now, because everything is on this. This is how we communicate. So as far as day game and things like that we grew up with back in the day, like in the 90s and the early 2000s, like nowadays it's just, you hit them up on Instagram or you go on an app. But organic pickup is something that's a rarity. But if you're single and you have that tool and you use it, that separates you from other people.
It's a good tool.
Sirkan, let's go to you for 1 second. The apps, you said you meet most of them there, so you do better there.
Which apps?
Yeah, is there a specific, or is it just in general? But at the same time, the question here is that what's better about the apps than that you can't really get in person?
Nothing's better about the apps. It's just everyone's there, right? We're all home. We're looking at our phones. It's just convenient. You just go there, but nothing's better on the apps. I would rather meet everyone I meet.
You think girls agree?
Or whatever.
You think girls agree too? They're just like, yeah, we do the apps, but we hate them though.
I'm one of the most respectful guys on those apps, and I can't imagine what they're dealing with. Like people say the weirdest shit. So it must be worse for women than men.
But I think it could be like a self-confidence esteem booster too, right? Whether you're a guy or girl, if you have the app and you're getting a million different matches coming through, like that could boost, I don't know how that would deter someone's self-esteem, but it could boost that person's self-esteem and confidence. So I think that it could be a good way in that aspect. But as far as, like Serena said, if you're going to meet someone, I'd much rather meet someone in the real world and see how that is, because anyone can Photoshop, anyone can change things.
Let's play a little pretend game real quick.
Yeah.
Let's pretend that, like, you know how girls, when you ask them like, what are you 1 through 10, and they all say, I'm a 10, I'm an 11.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pretend we're 10s and 11s too, just for 1 second, for argument sake. If you were a 10 and you go onto these apps, what's your experience going to be like? And would you still get bored and tired of that digitalness of it all? Or would you be like, yo, I'm a 10, I get thousands of matches, this is great, I can pick and choose what I like? Do you think a 10 would, obviously their experience is better, but do you think they would still prefer to meet in person?
I think so.
I think we all think we're a 10 sometimes.
Yeah, but let's say we are. Let's say we are, and you could have your pick of the, any way to meet girls, whether it's through friends, through apps, through just cold approach. How would you prefer to meet girls in the first place? What do you think the 10s prefer? Do you think they get sick of the apps too?
I think they probably
they do.
Yeah, I could see that. I could picture them getting sick of it. But so as far as the question going, are we asking what would we, if they're going to get over it or just tired of the nonstop bombardment of just matches and this and this and that.
So like, okay, I know girls, they do get a lot of dates off dating apps, right? But and we just lost Sir Ken. But the question here is does that mean that we were missing out by not using the dating apps, or is there like a different quality girl on the dating apps that is just like, yo, and that's the girls that we want in the first place? They're like, yo, we don't do dating apps. That shit is just too much.
I can respect that. I think I can respect the fact that someone just like, I'm not going to put myself out there online. And if someone thinks that I'm attractive and someone wants to essentially shoot their shot, then come up to me and do it.
What I'm trying to say is that someone on the last podcast said dating apps is like shopping in the clearance section, right? Meaning that all the best girls are not on the dating apps.
Because all the best ones are taken.
Right. So imagine if you were talking to all those best taken ones, maybe not necessarily like, you know, hooking up with them, but you're at a bar and you at least get to have those interactions with the 9s and 10s. Do you guys believe it's possible that the 9s and 10s are not even on the apps?
I think so. I think that it's hard to tell, right, with all these people. So I think that if you have a 9 or a 10 and they're open to a relationship, they're probably going to be in a relationship. And if they're in a relationship, then probably not on the app, versus someone who's single, who's a 9 or a 10, who wants that attention, or who's just out there because it's easier for whatever reason to be on the apps. They could be on there. So I don't know if there's a specific answer of a yes or a no. I think it all depends.
I think they'll just be on there for the self-service of it all.
Yeah, you're never going to get like anything serious with them on there. They just go on there for a little bit for the validation, but they would rather meet somebody in person still.
I think we all would, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, well, I still think we should master the apps, but I just think it's not as heavy of an emphasis as it's not as important as people.
Background noise.
Let me get to another question. Do girls chase guys more, or do guys chase girls more? And why is that?
I think it depends. It depends if say you're a celebrity, right? So let's say whoever, I don't know what's going on in the world now, but let's say there's this male celebrity who is in everyone's movie, this and this and that. Will girls chase him? I 100% agree, and vice versa,
Yeah.
right? So I think that there will be a chase based off the demand. So if someone wants that person, if they think that they're very popular, there will be that demand for sure. And I think they're going to get chased, whether it's a guy who's getting chased by females or girls getting chased by males, or whatever the case may be. If it's, you know, depending on their sex or it's same sex, it doesn't make a difference. If there's a demand for it, people are going to want it, just like it's hot on the market. So there's going to be a chase for it.
What about in other countries? Do you think there's like other countries where girls make the first move,
Yeah,
like in
I'm
South
sure there is.
America and
Yeah.
Eastern Europe? Why is that though? Why is it that out here they don't do that? But like they could do that, like you said, if there's something celebrity like about them.
Yeah.
Like even if you have a lot of Instagram followers, maybe. But like, why is it that in this country they don't, but in other countries they may? What's the reason?
I think it's just their upbringing where, so for let's say Sweden, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So that culture is just, it's very open. And if a female or a woman likes someone, they'll go up there and they'll say hi. But now if we're going back to LA, there's that stigma, or just in our world that we live in, there's that culture, and you can blame it on media, you can blame it on social media, where you shouldn't really put yourself out there as much. If someone likes you, you should let them come after you. But that opens up Pandora's box of, well, what if no one goes out there and then I don't make the approach, and then you're kind of just stuck single for a very long time. But I think it has to go with our upbringing as far as how we're taught in our society versus other countries where it's more relaxed, it's more free of, if you like someone, go say hi. It doesn't matter if you're one sex or another sex, it's just human nature. But I think the way we're brought up is more of like, let this person make the first approach.
What would you say, Matt?
Values are changing, especially with the new generation. It's always been expected for the masculine, right, to do the approaching of male or female. But since things are equaling out now, I think the dynamic needs to change, or is changing. Not that it needs to, but at the end of the day, we're all subject to the human condition. And would still be. I mean, I'd rather. I'm lazy too. I'm gonna choose the lazier option, right?
I think social media just fucked a lot of the human psyche's game plan up, right? Before people were hooking up, you know, now it's like the hottest girls are, all the girls are going for the top 1% of guys, right? So there's this like shift in equality now as far as distribution of who's getting, you know, play. What's the answer for that is just be part of the system, I guess.
It depends too where you go out, right? So LA versus OC, there's a big difference between the two, right? What I mean by that is if you were to go out to OC, let's say you go to Pendry, let's say wherever you go, these hotspots are, at least in Newport, there are plenty of females that will give you that look. They'll give you that come talk to me kind of vibe. So is that them opening the door? Sure. Does that happen in LA so much? It depends, but it's probably not. So it just really depends on where you're going and where you're putting yourself out there. So as far as the comfortability, like if we're going to just separate different countries, like we were talking about, you know, Europe and then South America versus the US, it's kind of like that also in California, where it depends on where you're going, the vibe is different. The vibe in LA is more of, I'd say, status depending on what happens, and OC is more just if someone likes you, they'll kind of give you that look, and then it's up to you if you want to pursue that or not, and vice versa.
But like talking about that little world of like, now you've got all of the components that you need, right, to fit the mold, right?
Yeah.
But now you live in that reality. Now the girls are chasing you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's true. Girls do chase more than guys.
Yeah.
For that niche of guy.
Because that's the demand. Yeah, because they want that. And then whether they want to support just anyone, right? If you want that person to support your lifestyle, if you want that person to be there, it's just the world we sometimes live in can be very vain. And if someone wants to do that for a status, if there's a demand there, they're probably going to put themselves out there, whether it's male or female. They're going to want that to try to reach that goal that they're after, because everyone else is after. And it's that demand. If there's a brand new tool that came out that everyone wants, whether it's a car or this, that, there's a demand for it. There's only one of them. People are going to chase after it.
It's not unfair. It's not like, oh, girls have all these opportunities and guys don't have all these opportunities. It's not like, sure, it's true. The dog always chases the cat, like you said, you know, guys are always a pursuer in the beginning. But as long as you got the game figured out, girls could be chasing guys left and right, you know? So it's not unfair.
No.
The sexual dating market is not unfair. You know, some guys might be like, oh, I got, you know, dealt the shorthand on this, or, you know, girls might get dealt the shorthand on their looks or something, but like it all evens out pretty good though.
Yeah. I think if you have that mentality of it's easier for one than another, then that's just a weak mentality. I think the way someone should go through life is, this is me, like it or not. I'm happy by myself. I'll be happy with someone, but I'm not going to depend my happiness or my status because of who I'm with, because I'm with this person or their looks or whatever the case may be. I think that's a weak mentality. The right mentality, in my opinion, would be, I'm content and I'm happy walking this world how I live it. And if someone wants to join me, then cool, all means, let's do it. But I'm not going to base my happiness on someone else, or it's not fair because women can get this and then men can't get that. I think that's just a weak mentality. Be who you are and just make it happen.
But at the end of the day, we all want somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want a partner. So what I'm trying to say is that as confusing as all this dating stuff may be, like the concept of get in where you fit in, right? That's a big thing too. So as unfair as it may seem on if you're the girl side or the guy side, like there's a lot of girls out here that they are trying to find love, and they've been dating these guys who maybe the guys are out of their league, and then now the girl's chasing the guy, or like, and like I've experienced this a ton as far as like the sexual dating market right now. It's like, bro, it's kind of hard to get a girl, you know, like they're all looking for the successful dude with the whatever, you know? So at the end of the day though, it all does kind of even out, back to kind of my point. So yeah, you should be fine being alone. I agree with all that. But at the end of the day, we all are trying to attract a mate, right? That's why we're even talking about any of this, right? We're trying to understand the whole game better. you kind of had a reoccurring theme that was like, yo, it's not hard to meet people as long as you have the capacity to be one of the guys who can use your mouthpiece, right?
Yeah.
Just don't be scared. Just go talk to people. Be friendly. Just say hello. The worst thing they can do is say no to you, but you do that 10 times and one person's going to be super
Right.
sweet, and then you build that connection, right?
And the answer is no if you don't do it anyways.
Right.
Yeah, so might as well put yourself out there and then, shoot your shot, because but again, it depends on everybody. But I'm the kind of person of the mentality of, if I see something and I have an opportunity and that's something you want, then by all means capitalize on it instead of regretting it later on.
But you said that back in the day, the cold approach, meeting people, that was the game, and like things are different now. It's really not though, right? Because dating apps, they're hit or miss. You could meet somebody, but like that doesn't mean that people can't just easily meet somebody if they get out of the house, right?
I agree with you, but the problem is, do people have that confidence to do it? So back in the day, you would go out there and you would meet people by just meeting them socially, right? Whether you're at the movies, you're at the mall, people are out doing things. They're not just glued on their phone.
Do you think back in the day, like in the 1990s, anyone asked if you had the confidence to do that? Like if you didn't, right? Like you were probably just like, that was the only way. So you had to have the confidence.
Exactly.
It wasn't even a question of, do you have the confidence to do it?
Right. And so that's kind of where the generation is shifting, in my opinion, as far as you can go out there and you can make something happen and go out there and get it done. But nowadays, you're used to talking to someone online. You're used to talking to them through the apps, through these filtered pictures where it might not even look like that in real life. But then can I go out there and make this cold approach when I'm not used to that? It takes courage just for anyone, whether you're male or female. If there's a pack of people there and you got to go out there and put yourself out there and potentially get laughed at or humiliated at, do you have the confidence to go out there and shoot your shot anyways? And I think let's
just hypothetically go back to there's a bunch of different ways to meet people, right? Let's say cold approach work, but regardless of how you meet them, whether it be online or social circle or cold approach, what are the signs when you first meet someone to know right away if they do or don't fuck with you, so you don't waste your time?
Body language, 100%.
Like if they're touching you, grabbing you by your dick, then you know they want to fuck.
So it depends on eye contact, I think, right? So if I'm going up to you and I'm talking to you and you're not giving me the courtesy to even look me in my eyes,
means they're totally uninterested.
Exactly. Or if they close their arms or closed off, I think the body tells you a lot about what's going on.
If she's grabbing your dick, she's totally interested. So somewhere in the middle of her looking away, totally not even acknowledging your existence, to grabbing your dick and saying, let's go to the bedroom, right?
You have my vote.
Like he or she, the person you're talking to has to portray that kind of interest. What about just on an intellectual level?
So as far as you walking up to someone and having that conversation, if they relate to you?
Yeah, like let's say you don't want to waste your time. You meet this person and you don't want to they still talk to you, but they don't give you signs. I think that's also important to keep an eye out for, right?
Yeah.
Like touching a little bit.
Or even not even if it's a touch, but if they're at least picking up what you're saying, they're laughing with you and they're
laughing at what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that's a huge one.
Yeah, and then you can kind of get a feel of the water and then go wherever you want to go with that. But if they're not relating to you and if they're not picking up on what you're saying, then that's just not going to match. And move on to the next one.
Laughing at what you say, touching you. It doesn't have to be sexual.
Right.
Just on the arm, a light, shows that we're comfortable. If you meet somebody, then on a dating app, then you have to get to that first date to even be able to really decipher any of those signs.
Exactly. And a lot of these dating apps, I can't, again, speak for other people, but from what I've seen from different dudes, like they'll put on a front that's not even real. You know what I mean? Like they will go stand in front of a nice car that's not even theirs and post a picture on that. And it's just, social dating apps are, in my opinion, just a game of lies, where you have to break down these barriers because society says if you have this nice car, then you're successful, when that's not even necessarily the case. But society puts that out there, so a lot of guys they'll do these fake things in order to try to get the attention of a female, but then you're just starting this whole relationship on a lie. And I don't know where it's going to go from there, but it's just going to be different hurdles this guy has to juggle with to try to get to that girl that he is trying to attract himself to, which is eventually just going to be a dead end.
The whole thing about dating apps is like, you're not meeting them necessarily for one reason, right? Like, you're not meeting them to have a relationship. Maybe the guys are flexing like that just to get as much pussy as possible. So it's so disingenuous as far as the girls who are looking for something serious, and then they just meet this like playboy. So it's like you're getting into this mess of you're not really sure what you're getting into, right?
Right. It depends on which apps you're on too. Each app has like their own stigma that comes with it, right? If you want something fast, the common knowledge out there is go through like Tinder. But if you want something different, then go through this other app or this other website where they actually like screen you through certain things. So, but it does open Pandora's box as far as women or men or whoever they are will meet each other if it's purely for just sexual desire, and then that person ends up getting hurt, and then that person's mentality changes of a guy like this or a girl like this doesn't work for me, and it closes off so many doors because of that one or a couple bad experiences. But it's just difficult with this whole social media thing and social dating apps to really have that one-on-one connection, whether it's physical or intellectual.
But you know, this whole concept of knowing what you're getting yourself into and knowing what the other person wants to, I don't think anyone ever goes into a relationship discussing that. It's like, I like you, you like me, that should be enough, right? But they don't think about all the different types of, right, relationships that could happen. Like, so, it's crazy.
But going on a date, going to dinner will help. Talk.
Yeah, communication.
I feel like one
key.
conversation, you could have a 5-minute conversation, right? On the phone even. And you could ask a bunch of questions and be like, oh, she's not the one for me.
Do people still do that? I remember back in the day, it was like you would call each other and talk on the phone and all that. I don't know. I'm sure now with like FaceTime maybe.
Look,
but...
I'm just going to tell a little story time. I already told you, right? This girl on the last podcast, she was cute, right? And I was digging her. I was like, and my homies were telling me like, yo, you better get that, bro, you know? So she came on, and then she was supposed to come to this episode, but she didn't. And I still was unclear on where I stood with her, right?
Okay.
I was like, bro, I'm just going to call. I'm going to ask her for like a quick phone call. Okay. Phone call basically got to the bottom of it. She has some other dude that she has feelings for. That's all I needed to know, right? Mm-hmm. So like certain things like that, like on a dating app, you could hide that stuff so much more because it's just text and you can't read emotions. And like, you know, it's like I couldn't come up and ask her right away. I didn't even ask her if she was seeing somebody. That would have been like whack game, you know? But she told me, and it was only because of the phone conversation. So it's like you need to be getting to the bottom of things quick with a girl, and that can only be done in person or on the phone.
But what you did also took confidence to do that. Instead of just being like, well, maybe she likes me, maybe she doesn't like me, and just going through your mind of whatever BS excuses. But at least you took the initiative and the confidence to be like, I'm going to call her and see what's going down before I waste more of my time. But other guys might not do that. They'll just be like, well, maybe she'll text me back after the 5th time I text her.
I don't think I could even do that over text.
Well, that's cool, though. That's cool that you be like, I'm going to just hit her up and one-on-one. This is my voice. This is your voice. Let's just have a talk about it and see where we're at and just cut the BS.
Yeah. So, okay. That's an example of like talking on the phone to get to the bottom of things quick, right?
Yeah.
The question that I started this whole thing was, what are the signs when you first meet somebody to know right away if they do or don't fuck with you? So if you meet in person, right?
Yeah.
You only need 5 minutes. If you talk on the phone, maybe you might need just double that time, but still pretty relatively quick to know if they fuck with you or they don't fuck with you.
Probably less than 5 minutes. I say within the first, what they say, 10 seconds, you'll really know. Like
okay, but if you meet them on social media, right, or dating apps, that's still a great way to meet people. I'm not saying it's not. I would love to meet a gang of girls that are, you know, beautiful and try to have, but there's that barrier in between now. It's like you're not going to know in the first 5 minutes. You could be talking to this girl for a week.
Right. And that's where it goes into like that vanity aspect of it, because you're swiping on pictures based off looks, realistically. Like, I don't know who's reading the bios, or maybe they do read the bios, or they have a dog or something, but it's just like you are physically attracted to that person, so you're going to swipe, and then in hopes that they match with you, and then you can start that dialogue. But the problem is those 5, 10 pictures, whatever they are that you put on there, are going to be your best foot forward, I would hope or expect. And what happens if that's not reality? So
not only does it take longer to get to know them, but in the very beginning, you're already like not really sure if you're getting what you're
right,
bargaining for, because it's like the way they present themselves.
exactly. And is that really who they are? And that's when you got to start that dialogue and that conversation of just being like, I don't know. To me, it's harder because if you're going to meet someone on the street, this is me versus let me put my best foot forward and the best pictures.
Okay,
and
but
this and
let's,
that.
for argument's sake, let's just say dating apps was a perfect way to meet girls. How do you know if somebody doesn't fuck with you right away? Does or doesn't fuck with you right away? I think the first thing is like how quickly they're responding to your messages and like the depth of the dialogue in the messages. So
Yeah, I think it's based off, are they responding to you and how are they responding to you, right? If it's a 1-word K, okay, well then you gotta, it's not looking good. But if they're asking you a question back, if you ask them, hey, how's it going? What did you do today? And they answer that and they say, what did you do today? And you start that dialogue.
I want to ask this question then.
Yeah.
Okay, if a girl doesn't like you in the beginning and you know it, do you back off or do you keep trying to get her to like you, and why for both of those answers? Because I mean, there's situations where you may want to keep trying. There's situations where you should just back off and forever walk away. So, but like, why?
Yeah, definitely depends on the situation. It's definitely going to be your call, right, when the situation happens. Personally, again, I'm lazy. I wouldn't bother.
You wouldn't bother. You would just be like, yo, it's probably never going to work, so I'm just going to quit.
Yeah, and maybe that's bad on my part. Maybe I'm too pedantic or depressed about it. But
What would you say?
So I think, at least me personally, you do want some of that chase, right? So if I'm gonna have to go back to that question because I probably forgot it, but if someone, or you can read it back and I'll just kind of take it one piece at a time.
If a girl doesn't like you in the very beginning and you knew it, would you back off or keep trying to get her?
I think depends on how clear she made it she doesn't like you. But if you see an opportunity there, a window of opportunity, then try it. Exhaust that option. If you really like her and you think that I can give me a fair shot and I can make you see who I am, and then if you don't like it, cool, and if you like it, even better. But I think you want some of that chase, or at least in my opinion. If you try to pursue it and she's still not feeling it, then understand what's going on and move on.
You guys know who Grant Cardone is?
Yeah.
Okay, so the way he got his wife was the second way. He kept trying. She gave him no time of the day, right? And then he was like, nah, I'm going to show you. And he wooed her and he got her, and she didn't like have that initial wow in the beginning, but she loves her life now.
Yeah, and if you like something, then go out there and try to get it within reason, right? So I'm sure Grant Cardone was going and shooting his shot and trying to convince her who he is, but then
with
again,
game probably, right?
And that's the other thing too, is like, it's that going back to that self-respect part of how much more do I need to bend over backwards just to get you to like me, and is that worth me doing that?
I was telling him too. Remember, she told me the news, and then I was like, I didn't just say, the same girl I'm telling you the story about, I didn't just say, oh, okay, right away, right? I think what I followed up with was like, I kept trying. I was like, yeah, but because I guess it was some dude that she was, on and off with, and then like he started being better or whatever. So she wanted to give it a shot. I was like, well, when you meet somebody fresh, it's just new and there's like that spark, and like he's kind of, history, like you might as well just, start new and fresh with me. I think you'll be a lot happier. So I didn't give up.
Okay.
I still tried, still shot my shot, right?
Yeah.
So I believe that girls, they appreciate that, right? That you don't just give up on them right away. Like, all right, bitch, deuces, like you. But at the same time, it could be seen as sucker as well if you try hard.
I think if you try too hard after it's been clear, then that just, you're a sucker for that.
And also, like, as a guy, you could still keep trying. Yeah. But there's this like patience game that some guys have, right? That they like,
you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Well, like they don't right away say, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" But like a couple months can go by and then they can follow back up. You know, so it's the follow up game too.
But it all depends too, in my opinion, based off like if that person who you're pursuing is giving you like little nuggets of there's an opportunity,
Right.
and she just wants you to keep on fighting and trying,
Right.
then by all means go for it for sure.
So you should keep trying if she gives you breadcrumbs, because you're like, if you're not in it for some genuine reason, because then you can really get your heart broken, right?
Right.
This is like talking about recreationally. You should just have the game to keep trying. But if you really like the girl, you should probably just walk away and just say, no, this is done.
If you really like her and she's still giving you breadcrumbs,
Yeah, you should not pursue the breadcrumbs.
I think you should. Why not? Yeah, I think you should go after him.
Because like it wasn't genuine from the beginning.
But is anything genuine in the beginning? Are you
Okay,
you're 100%?
So you're saying
you know what
if
I mean?
she ended up being your dream girl and you're glad that you did put in that extra work to pursue the breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I think so. Because I want things that aren't easy. You know what I mean? And if you're going to give me a little something.
But it's not about being easy and wanting the challenge. It's about, in the end, will you guys make it the distance of going to be 80 years old and old people? Or is she like, you were second option, so she's going to take you for granted the rest of your life?
That's only an answer that you can tell if you're comfortable with pursuing that and seeing what happens.
I think if you had the game plan like Grant Cardone, he's like, yo, I'm going to be so successful. Like, I'm sure he could get a lot of girls chasing him at this point, right?
Yeah.
So he had that confidence of like, you're going to end up realizing, you know, he was confident in his ability and he delivered. Now he's a billionaire or whatever the fuck.
But that's the other thing too, is that approach. Because Grant Cardone did that show where he went to like, I don't know if it's Texas or Arizona with nothing. And he had to make like a multi-million-dollar business in like, I don't know, 3 months or something. So it depends on what foot you're putting forward. Are you putting forward this, I'm this billionaire 10X guy and people, I want you to like me because of that? Or am I putting up I don't want you to know what I have, so I'll drive a bucket to the first date and see if they really mess with me.
Well, going back to like, let's say any one of us met a girl tonight.
Yeah.
We went out with them and then you realize she's not fucking with you like that hard. She entertained you. She went on a date with you, right? She didn't say anything directly to say, I'm not fucking with you. But you got that sense. Are you going to keep pursuing? And I guess it depends on how hot she is. I think for a lot of guys, right? Like, yo, no, I'll go on another date. I'll give that another try, you know? But at what point do you just keep chasing the breadcrumbs forever? I guess it depends, right?
Yeah, I think it depends if those breadcrumbs are going to take you like to the bakery. But it also depends on your time, right? Because all we have is real time. Is that person worth you sacrificing more of your time knowing that it might not go somewhere or knowing that it may go somewhere? And if so, how much of that are you willing to cough up to check that box, either yes or no?
So if she really likes you, she actually likes you, she desires you, but there's like a conflict at the time.
Okay. Like, what do you mean? Like, what kind of, like, she is getting out of a relationship?
There's an obstacle in your way, right?
Okay.
Another guy.
I gotcha.
Then sure, you know, right? But if she is genuine about, I'm not attracted to you, then that's the moment you're like, well, there will be a girl who is attracted, so.
Right. Who's worth your time putting up, instead of, like you're saying, being someone's second option or something like that. No one wants to be like that, and that's not like a healthy relationship. But if there is a hurdle, there will probably always be a hurdle.
But are you okay knowing you're not the first option?
I wouldn't be with someone who I'm not the first option with, because I'm not going to settle for second place, which is the first loser. Like, that's not me. That's not my personality. So I'd much rather, even if we're sacrificing, like, whatever the case may be, let's say we're just focusing primarily on looks, I'd much rather go with someone who society doesn't say is a 10, but I'm their first option, rather than someone who society says is a 10 and I'm their second option. But again, it's personal preference. That does not mean I'm not going to settle for something who doesn't have me on top of mind, because I'm going to have her at top of mind as well. So it has to match.
It's a tough question, right, Matt?
Yeah, I think so.
Because you as a man, you could sacrifice, right? And as long as the girl gives you the world, then I'm talking about as far as like her being a 10, right? You could sacrifice on that. You could go down to just average, and she could still be the most beautiful girl in the world for you. Granted, she gives you the world, right? If she's being a bitch, and then, you know, that's the case where you're just like, it doesn't really matter how hot they are at that point, right?
Yeah. Well, would you sacrifice, and how much would you sacrifice if she's a 10, just to keep a 10?
I wouldn't. I was watching some podcasts like saying that 9s and 10s are the most difficult women to put up with, right? I wouldn't take the 9 and 10.
Well, that's
I
good.
would recreationally have fun with the 9 and 10. But then like for wifey type, then I would just take the most competent, perfect, loving wife and mother.
Even if you sacrifice that
Yeah.
10. Yeah. And see that, I would relate to that, and that makes sense, where it's not, but that society nowadays is based off of looks, but it's not just looks. It's, if you want something serious, those looks are going to fade no matter what. And is that person's inside, that genuine characteristics of them, if that's what you're attracted to, then by all means go for it.
So when it comes to this dating world, you know, it's crazy because sex is pretty rampant, right? People are not just waiting to get married to have sex. So the whole idea of marriage is something totally different in the day and age that we live in. If you want to have fun and recreationally, then that's all fun and games. If you want to get married, and a lot of girls nowadays claim they want to get married, but they're not really following the rules of marriage, right? So as guys, we have to just be like, yo, we're not falling for it anymore, ladies. Marriage is dead. Everyone fucking knows it. If we do get married, we already, you know, we know what the consequences is, and we're not 100 years in the past anymore. It's like marriage is not the same deal.
So why get married?
Because you could do it differently and you could still protect yourself. Like you can get married in Colombia or, you know, the Middle East, and you could have a bulletproof prenup where it's not going to fuck you totally, but you can just make her happy. And even if you do end up divorcing after 10 years, you're still not getting fucked. So you're like, all right, if it makes you happy that we're husband and wife and married and with the ring, I want to do whatever makes you happy, baby, you know?
But what about you though? Because it's that two-way relationship. Like, is it worth you going through all that and marrying someone and saying this is my wife and all that if you aren't really in it?
I think you're going to compromise a lot of things, right? And if it doesn't hurt me, if I got to give half my shit up, then no, kill me. Give me the rope right now. You know, like as long as I'm not being hurt by it, I'll do whatever she wants to make her happy. It's kind of like decorating the house to me. It's like you're just decorating our relationship.
I gotcha. Okay. So again, that's everyone's like personal opinion, but mine would be the exact opposite of it. Like if it depends on the person, right? But if you're going to like marry someone, in my opinion, I'm probably old school for thinking it, but this is your person. This is you are sacrificing everything to. Because we talked about earlier, there's always going to be someone that has more. There's always be someone that's more attractive. It's never going to stop. That's just the way life is. But are you willing, in my opinion, as far as marriage goes, is to put all of that aside and commit to this person in hopes that it's going to work out? And if it doesn't, then at least you tried everything. But if we're getting married just to polish up our relationship and put a new title on it without anything behind it, then I think it's doomed to fail. I think you have to essentially go in. But again, that's my opinion.
No, bro, it's doomed to fail already.
Marriages?
You getting married in America is already like, bro, it's just like nobody thinks the same about it anymore.
Until you find that person who
Communication.
has that, their parents taught them different and the same as you, and then you can kind of bounce off that. And
I don't even think until then, because look, let's say you did find that girl, right?
yeah,
She knows what the statistics of marriage are, doesn't she?
sure.
She knows somebody who's gotten divorced, right? She knows that half of the people are going to get divorced, right?
Right.
But I don't think 100 years ago, girls went into it thinking like, oh, wow, the statistics are 50%, because they weren't.
But who cares about stats?
Stats are important because it shows the odds of what could likely happen to you.
Right, but I'm not living in that world. I'm living in the world of this is my stat, and if it's going to work out, it's going to work out. But just because the odds are, if I go scuba diving with sharks, I might get
What
bit.
I'm trying to say is this, okay? There's two girls, right? They're
Yeah.
both perfect for you, okay? One girl grew up in this reality where she understands that there's this thing called divorce. Like it's an option for her. And it's been an option for like 50% of the people so it's an option.
Yeah.
The other girl, she grew up in like Kazakhstan or some fucking under the rock place that she doesn't even know. She thinks that when you get married, you literally have to die with that person. There's no chance of divorce. Like that's not even a thing in their culture.
I gotcha.
That's how it used to be.
Right. But if you're going to marry someone who, in my opinion, has that plan B of divorce as an option, then to me that tells you they're already 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
What I'm trying to say is that is every person now in the West. Every person understands that marriage is not forever.
It doesn't have to be, but you should get into marriage with the hopes that it would be forever.
But what I'm saying though is like, since everyone understands this common theme that marriage doesn't mean like you literally have to die if you guys separate. It means that you'll be okay if you separate. So since everyone thinks this way, right? But then again, you're right. There's the exceptions to the rule, and like if you find a good one and you guys are both mature, then you guys can make it 80 years. Cool, but yeah.
But I don't want to get into like to your business, but I know you mentioned earlier, were you married?
Yeah.
So what made you want to take that leap?
No, that commitment. You're right. You know, you don't want to jump in there not having that thought. You know, it should be on both sides. To me, yeah, it crosses that line, right? And you realize that you both are committed and you're willing to go involve the government into your affairs, really.
Yeah.
You know, I'm willing to bet half my shit now that I'll be with you for my life, for all my life, right?
Right.
And that could be a scary thing.
Yeah, it is scary.
We're just like you're opening yourself up, you're being vulnerable. Yes. And a lot of people don't want to do that.
Admit to that, yeah, or do it at all. Yeah, it's a test of commitment.
So the girl that you were with, right? Did she have that upbringing, that marriage till death?
I wouldn't know. You know, that's on her. I know she had lived a very different life, right?
But like she had both her parents together, right?
At times, yeah.
They were married, her parents?
Yes. Were.
So she grew up in a kind of like vibe of like, yo, marriage is until we grow old, right?
Business out there like that, but yeah. I mean, sure, we all do, right?
I'm just trying to say that every girl, like, there's a lot of girls that come from broken families. I get that, but there's a lot of girls that come from 2-parent households too, right?
Yeah.
But every girl knows that if shit gets really rocky with us, we're gonna like go separate ways. It's not like the girl in Kazakhstan where she's like, yo, they're gonna kill me if we're not together. Like, it's the law. Like, she's not like, marriage isn't the same idea anymore.
And that's the sad part. But what about from the man's perspective? If shit gets rocky, are you just gonna like pull the eject cord and be like, I'm gonna get divorced now? Like, are you gonna stick it out?
Yeah, I don't think guys are either. But you know, 75% of divorces are initiated by women, not men. So men are still guilty 25% of the time. I'm not saying they're not, but majority is women doing that.
But could it be the woman initiating the divorce because of the actions of a man?
It could be. So we'll just say it evens out to 50-50. But just, I guess the bottom line is like, we all want to find a girl, right? We don't want to get married tomorrow, but it would be nice if we could find a girl that we could marry to, you know, in a couple years from now, right?
Right.
But like, everyone's so scared because everyone has all these options, right? So I think I got more questions. That question is like one of those questions that's like, if we knew the answer to that,
it's a good question.
How do you handle a situation where you're with a girl, you're in love with her, everything's good, but you're either not fond of one of her friends or a family member?
That's tough.
Yeah.
So not fond for them because
like the friend potentially is a bad influence.
Okay.
And the family member is just toxic.
Okay. So taking the friend part first, if that friend is a bad influence and you really care and love this person, then you're going to try to at least open your significant other's eyes to be like, she's a problem or he's a problem because of these things. Not to say that that's, you know, you can't be fixed, but as far as like, if this friend is leading you down the wrong path, then you would hope for that person's sake, your girlfriend, whoever, let's call it the girlfriend, look, this person is bad because they're doing X, Y, Z. But the problem you run into, and it's a real world problem, is, well, this is my friend that I've been friends with for 20 years, and you just don't like her for whatever reason. But you really have to communicate it in a way of, you have the best interest for your girlfriend in mind. This person is a bad influence. They can change, sure, and when they change, they can come back in your life. But for right now, for your sake, looking out for you without your emotions getting in the way, it's not a good fit. And hopefully your girlfriend would have enough respect for you to hear what you say and at least hit the brakes, or at least really put that into play, instead of just saying, I don't care what you're telling me, she's my friend. That's a bad sign, in my opinion. The family members where you get...
Yeah, this one's a little bit harder.
Yeah, because you can pick your friends, but
Yeah.
you can't pick your family.
So what now?
So if that person is toxic, and I would just go based off the support of the family. So say, for example, it's a cousin, and the cousin's a very, very bad influence for my girlfriend. I would try to at least communicate why that person is a bad influence for the time being, and maybe have some support from the rest of the family as well. So it's kind of just, we're not saying don't hang out with that person because they're bad and that's their problem. We're pretty much saying don't hang out or try to distance yourself, because that person will lead you on the wrong path that none of us want you going down. So let's just say, whatever the common example would be, whatever that vice is of that cousin, this isn't good for you. You're going down this road. We know how this story ends, so don't live it. Let's try to go into a different path, in hopes that if you were to go on the right path, that cousin can realize it and piggyback off you and get off of that track of whatever vice they're in. But it's all about, in my opinion, communicating and not arguing. But the problem with that is, does your girlfriend or significant other respect you enough to put that into motion? Or is she just saying, you don't like my friend because she does X, Y, Z, or you don't like my cousin because X, Y, Z? That's when you have to figure out, if we can't see eye to eye on something so small, or what may seem like a big deal to you, what's going to happen later on in life? And then
I think it's like the Bonnie and Clyde shit. Like everyone, me and you against everyone, right? Fuck, I don't care if it's your mom or nothing, right? Let alone a friend, So she should already be under the understanding that I wouldn't fucking like them, right? And so if it got to the point where she started being kind of choosy, I would consider leaving.
Right. And that's the whole point, is if you're not going to hear what I have to say and put what I'm saying into motion because I have the best intentions for you, then
it means your vibes and frequencies were different.
Yeah,
because that wouldn't be an issue if you guys were like on the same type of mentality.
Exactly. It shouldn't be an issue from the jump, because she would have realized this is a bad friend, or stay with my cousin because she's just very toxic.
Yeah, what would you say about that?
I turn it back on you now, as I feel like it touches on the conversation we said earlier, but like, when are you going to have the self-awareness then to walk away? Because like, you're saying so much with what you're saying now.
Yeah, like
that.
what
if
if
dump her
yeah, are you gonna, that's a good question. Are you, as soon as that happens, you should have already dumped her.
As soon as she doesn't
refuses to keep talking, or keep talking to her friend.
No, like like as soon as you had that talk and she wasn't like, I know, and then was 100% on your side, it's probably time to be like, yeah. But I agree with you, as a mature person, you should have that conversation, kind of outline it out, be like, this is why, and just like with your own maturity, be like, this is not gonna work if this is and then let her make that decision of like, yeah, we don't have to have these people in our life, sweetie, but
right.
But then again, like, it's kind of hard to make that call to be like, yo, cut this person off, cut that person off. That's kind of controlling.
Right. And you don't want to give that ultimatum of, it's your cousin, or it's me, or it's your friend, or it's me. And that's a bad look, and it's a bad way to approach it. The right way, in my opinion, would be like, this is the problem that we're dealing with, or that I see that's inevitably going to be happening, and I'm looking out for you, so we shouldn't do that. But if you don't hear what I'm saying and you don't care what I'm saying, then I'm not going to waste my time anymore, because I'm looking out for you at the end of the day, not me. And if you don't see that, then we're not going to see eye to eye on things that really, really matter in the future. So I might as well just call it quits.
Do you guys think you have some friends that you don't want to cut off, or family that you don't want to cut off, but and then like, if you were in that situation, would you just not bring them around ever? Not ever, that like, kind of like that too, right? Like, if she knew she had a friend that you wouldn't approve of, bitch, don't be so dumb to be even letting me know about this friend. But at the same time, what if she hangs out with her friends? So you're gonna know eventually.
I think it gets into a sticky situation when you have a friend who has a different mentality than you do in the relationship. And what I mean by that is, let's just say, let's put me in as an example, right? Let's say that I have a friend who is super single, goes out every single weekend, does all these things, and I'm in a relationship. Where do you think that friend's going to take me? And is my significant other, my girlfriend, going to like that or not? Does that make sense? So it's kind of
like, you know, back to you. That's your friend. You've known him for a long time. You guys draw a separation between going out and being professional, and she doesn't like it, and she tells you to cut him off.
so how much do I respect and love my person who will be with me? You know what I mean? My friend, I know he's going to change when he finds a girlfriend. That's going to change. So I would essentially start to distance myself from that. No disrespect to him, but we're just on two different paths right now. You can live that single path, you can have fun, and when you settle down, double date, do all that fun stuff, sure.
I think I would just be like, look, baby, it's you and me against the world. If you tell me to cut somebody off, they're gone because it's just you and me.
But
That's how I would be.
what if she has a bad intent for doing that?
If she has a bad intent, then yeah, then that's different. You,
Because there's dudes out there that will do that. They'll be like, cut off all your friends, I'm your world. Because their intention is, I don't want your friends telling you the truth about me. Does that make, so I'm going to try to isolate you. And that's a bad mentality, but there are people out there that do it, I'm sure, all the time. And they try to essentially segregate their friends into
yeah, that's like a whole manipulation
exactly,
tactic
right.
there.
And it happens. You know, I'm sure there's people out there that do it. It's not like it never happens. We live in this perfect world of sunshine and rainbows, but it does happen, and it's hard to realize.
If they're real friends though, they'll still be around when that toxic relationship was over.
100%. Or a real friend would tell you, dude, she's bad for you, or vice versa. You know, he's bad for you, whatever the case may be. And that is where you got to put that feeling aside of the honeymoon phase of, but I really like this person, but I know she's bad for me, versus, and your friends are telling you she's bad for you. And it's hard when you juggle with that. But that's
so it comes down to, if they were actually friends that you should have in your life, they would stay, and the relationships would stay strong through the relationship. But if they were people that you shouldn't really have in your life, and this girl was taking you in the right direction, they're probably friends that you should have let go a while ago. Right. So yeah, eventually, depending on if the relationship is headed in a healthy way, then all the relationships around you would, you know, lead to healthy. Versus if she was unhealthy, then your relationships wouldn't match with that unhealthy new relationship in your life.
exactly.
Okay. Cool. Any comments? Okay, how do you guys, go ahead.
No, I just feel like a lot of people deal with that in their relationships, I'm sure.
Yeah, like you have to like fit in your girl with your family and friends and see the whole dynamic of your new life with everyone in it.
Yeah. And you're never going to please everybody, right? So let's just, I never lived this life, but as far as like a common example, what I think would be super difficult is, let's say that I bring a girl home and I'm trying to like introduce her to mom and dad, and let's say that she has kids, right? Is that going to please everybody, or vice versa? Let's say that there's a girl in
a different religion and your parents are religious.
Right, exactly. Or let's switch it up. Girl brings guy over and guy has 2 kids. What's her family going to say about that? So there's always, no matter what it may be, there's going to be adversity in a relationship, in a new relationship, but it's kind of just working that out, which is the hard part. But and not letting other people get into your head and affect that relationship is the difficult part, because everyone's going to have an opinion, everyone's going to have something to say. But are you strong enough, and is that relationship strong enough to be like, I don't really care, this is the way it's going to work? It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the person that's making that decision is sound-minded, right?
Yeah.
So it's the best decision for them. All right, here's a question. How do you guys feel about a 10-year age gap for your relationship?
Just up or down, or does it matter? Just 10 years? Doesn't matter if she's 10 years older or 10 years younger?
Let's talk about both. Yeah.
Okay. So if she's 10 years younger, then that you would have to find someone super mature, because, you know, chick in her 20s is going to want to go out there and live their best life and travel and do this and this and that. And that's not to mean that you can't do that with them, but as far as you're going to have to find someone who's really committed and not going to step out of a
What's the
relationship.
age that girls start to settle down nowadays?
Nowadays, I don't even know. I think it's going to be older probably, but it depends on their upbringing. If
I think that solid age of 30, when they hear those words like, "Oh, you're 30 now," right? That's kind of a wake up call for them. 30.
I think if we're going like scientific
Scientific is different.
because then fertility, you got to, freeze eggs and you got to do all that. Because if you're in your 30s and you start to date, I don't think you're going to get pregnant that next week. So if this is something long term, then you got to like really plan out if you want to start a family with this person. There's a lot more hurdles. So people might start to settle down younger, probably in their late, maybe like 25 plus, because then you can have a 5-year span of like dating and then really get into it if they're thinking logically and if they want to have a family. Because not to see that they can have kids when they're older.
Okay.
It's
Let's
harder.
say, us as the men, right? We prefer a certain age so that, let's say you wanted 4 kids, you'd have to account for the time for those 4 kids. But if you only want 1 kid, then she has to probably meet maybe a higher threshold of age because you only want 1 kid, right? So depending on you as the guy, I'm just going to say my answer. I think she would probably have to be like 25.
Yeah, that sounds fair. But then going back to like your question of if they're 10 years younger, they got to be mature. If they're 10 years older, then they're probably mature and they have a lot of life experience, so you can learn a lot from.
So with the 10 years older, you're ruling out a family pretty much. It's more of just like you and her. And if she has kids, then they become part of your family, and now vice versa, the guy too. But if she's 10 years younger, then you guys don't see any issue with a girl being 10 years younger. Do you see girls having an issue with a guy being 10 years older than her?
I don't think so. I think a lot of girls go for the older guys because there's less games. A guy in her, so let's say they just go to 23. A guy that's 23 and a girl that's 23, a guy that's 23 as far as going to have more
You don't
options.
think the girl's like, oh, he's 10 years, that's so much?
I don't think so. I think they're going to find that he's more mature and he's probably less likely to go out there and do something dumb with his friends. I think he's probably going to be established at that point. He's going to have a career. So, for example, let's take a 32-year-old successful adult male versus a 23-year-old college male. Who's going to have more of a foundation set up to provide for that person? So I think they're going to look out for that. They're going to be like, oh, he can provide more. He can do more. He's established.
But that's the way we think.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how girls necessarily think. I think if they had the 23-year-old guy, they might just pick the 23-year-old guy.
Because he's fun. It could be because he's fun and exciting, but
not because he's fun, just because he's closer in age to her.
But then we go into just maturity, where it's just like there's a lot of younger. I just think that it depends on how you were brought up and are you mature. What are you looking for realistically? Are you looking to date long term or short term? If it's a short term thing.
I think that's super true, right? If she's looking to date long term, she has to consider the older guy. If she's looking to date short term, she's probably going to pick the guy her own age.
I think so, because the longer term, the more older adult is going to have, he went through the struggles already. And so I don't know anyone who's like, yeah, I'm going to volunteer to go through the struggles with you and hopes that we can make it when you already did that and I can jump in it.
She understands that she's waiting at the finish line. So she's getting the guy who's the package already versus having to develop with him through that process. But yeah, no, it's funny because like I think it's totally normal, right? But then sometimes I meet girls and they think that 10 years is this like crazy number. And I'm like, really? I was like, it's a big deal for you? But like to them, it kind of is a big deal sometimes. They're like, well, you are 10 years older than me. And I'm like, what's the big deal? But to them, sometimes it is.
Yeah.
And so like, if I would put myself in the same shoes, I know men and women are totally different, but I wouldn't really want to date somebody 10 years older than me, right? I'd prefer to date somebody younger or the same age. So I'm wondering if girls see it in like the biological attraction type way. Like I'm just way more attracted to the younger guy my age.
Probably. I don't see why not. Well, it depends on what you like, right? So, but if we're just going just based off stats, if you have a younger guy who's probably more athletic, more fit than an older person.
And if he makes the same amount of money, it takes that off the table too. So
right. So if you're going based off physical attraction, that's one thing. If you're going based off energy, how much energy can they put in this relationship? That's another thing. So yeah, it's just like everything. If something is younger, it's newer and it has more in it. But
I'm wondering to the female gaze, right? Like, do they like that mature, like
It's personal preference.
maybe if she has daddy issues and she for sure would like that, right? But on average, does she like that mature, fatherly kind of a little bit older than her? On average, I'm wondering, or do they like their own age?
I think it all goes back to the whole wanting to start a family, right? You want one your age or younger.
They're not going to be stupid at that point. They're going to be like, yo, the 23-year-old ain't going to get it done. So it's all about logic at that point.
well, when you go out, what do you see most of? Do you see, like, what's that dynamic? Like older men, younger female, or do you see more of the same age? Because I think if we were just to go look out from a bird's eye view of society, that kind of shows us where we're heading and like what is normal now.
Okay, well, I definitely notice a trend of the younger guys not having as much game. I'm not even talking about money or status or just game, right?
Yeah.
Takes you 10 years sometimes to develop maturity to like be a smooth talker and a charmer, and like the younger guys, they don't have it as at that, like, that charisma type that the guy that's been honing his skills for 10 years has.
And that's a good point. That can happen. That 10-year gap doesn't necessarily mean based off looks, but it can just be based off game also.
Game, for sure.
Because if there's a guy in his 20s, his whole world is on his phone. Back in the guy who's in his like late 30s, his whole world was human-to-human interaction. So he can set the tone. He can have a conversation. They can laugh. They can joke versus some other person who didn't really grow up that way, and it would be a little awkward and it would be a little more difficult. As far as if you were just to go to a bar and just watch someone who's seasoned make an approach versus someone who's new in the game make an approach, I think experience really plays a factor.
But girls, I'm just wondering if they're just like us. We see the younger chick and that's what attracts us. I wonder if they see the younger guy and that's what attracts them. Or is it they see the older guy and it's this like sexual appeal for them? I'm not sure.
Personal preference.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe just one more question. Let's see. How do you court a woman?
That's a good question. I think it depends on, the most important thing is going to be effort and time. Because if you're not giving, your whoever you want to establish a relationship with, your time, your effort, which is really all you have, then I think that's actions speak louder than words, right? So
it's almost more important than the money, right? Like the time you're spending with her.
Yeah, for sure. But then you also have to have money to make that happen. So do you want to take them on a nice, buy them nice things or flowers or a nice dinner or things like that? That courtship or sacrifice to potentially lead to a relationship, I think is how you do it.
You should spend financial resources on her in the beginning. It's a gesture, right?
I think if you have it and you're not going to break the bank and that's who you are, then do it. But don't put up this front of maxing out a credit card to buy something nice, because then she's going to think that that's what it is and realize that it's not. And then you've got to tip your toe around that, starting off as a fraud kind of thing. But even if you don't have the money to court a woman...
Are you saying that however you court her has to be how you continue to court her throughout the whole relationship?
Yeah, be you, right? If you don't have money, then I would probably appreciate so much more a handmade gift or a handmade something than someone who just bought it online and sent it to my front door. That's cool, but whether you have the money or not, I think it's that effort that you're really investing into that relationship to court them. Make them feel special, spend your time with them, and build that relationship. And that's really all you can do. And if that's not enough, then that's not the one for you. But it doesn't necessarily have to be money. If you have the money to buy something nice and you want to show that person you appreciate them, by all means, go for it. But even if you don't have money and you want to do a picnic at the park, stuff like that, I think the effort goes a long way in addition to someone's time.
So it's the arrangements.
I think so.
It's the time.
Yeah, you're taking the time to plan.
And there's some level of financial resources. If you're not rich, then don't do too much, but you have to do something.
Yeah, you gotta, whether you create something.
Even a picnic costs money, right?
Right, or even just handmade card with your words on there. Anything that I think a chick would appreciate. And if that's you, and if that's not good enough for them, then you don't deserve that person, they don't deserve you. Because if you're giving everything your all, and it may seem small in society nowadays, then go for someone who really appreciates what you have to offer, even if it's a string around their finger because you can't afford a ring. But that effort, and they like you and they vibe with you, and that time you're putting in hopes to one day make it, that's the person you would want by your side. And that's how you court them, as far as time and effort, whether there's money or no money. It's just, this is what you can offer as far as your love and opening up and being vulnerable. And if that's enough, then that should be enough. And if it's not, then move on.
Yeah, I think making arrangements, your time, and minimal or as much financial resources as your lifestyle affords, those are like the three parts. According, what else? Do we have anything to add to that?
Yeah. I mean, my answer was going to be not very well, apparently. But also with everything you just mentioned, as well as what you open up with and what you're maintaining, you have to have that communication, and they still have to be open to accepting that.
Oh, so you're saying court has to do with the give and take, like
Well, they still got to accept the love you're giving them, right?
Right. That's a good point too. So court is realizing and understanding that, like, how well are they receiving this time, these resources, and these arrangements, and giving them as much as they can handle.
Right. But then I would hope that other person, whoever you're courting, would reciprocate that back to you, so that you know you're on the right path,
Right.
and you know they feel the same way.
Right. Okay. Well, I wish we can talk about this more, because it's kind of fun to talk about the whole courting stuff, right? But both of our cameras are dead, so we are going to end the stream here, and then if you guys are down, come back again, and hopefully we'll have more people by then.
Cool.
All right.